working on. But yeah, the idea of our government should work for even the people we disagree with. I think when I run for office, that's one of the things I want to do. I'll be running as a Republican, but I want to also go to the Democratic office and talk to the Democrats because, one, they might have ideas that they could convince me or at least further help me buttress my ideas that I would have for policies and things of that nature. And second, we do need to be having a dialogue with everyone, even if we have different opinions. I don't recall ever politicians going to the other side and being like, yeah, can I have a discussion? If you got elected, what would your policies be? Is there kind of a compromise we'd have? Or, yeah, I don't think we should compromise on this because I think I'm right. But nonetheless, you should let people, both in real life and if you're running as a politician, you should let people know, hey, I'm still looking out for you. I'm still concerned about your input. I still think the government should work for you, even though I disagree with you, and I value your input into that. So, yeah, I think we get too much of like, oh, the government needs to be focused on, people I identify with or people that voted for me or vote the way I ideologically do, and screw the other side. Like, I don't think that's the right way to go about it. And I don't really see any politicians that are really trying to make headway. That's why both sides do it. I think the Democrats, again, do it worse, but I might be biased. But that's why you have Hillary being like 50% of Trump's people were deplorable, or you can't be civil with these people. And, there's these constant homages to, oh, people that voted for Trump are racist. They're uneducated. Like, all of these comments. I won't, just because I disagree with something, like maybe you're, like, for example, some of my friends are Bernie supporters, Democratic Socialists. I would still want them to know, hey, if I get elected, I'm still working for you as well, just because we disagree. Now, I might not advocate policies you like, but I still value your input, and if I disagree with you, I'll let you know, but I still want you to know that I'm listening, right? I don't understand why, why that doesn't happen more often. Also, a couple other things that I'd be doing is when I run, and I'll get into more videos of what my specific platform will be. I will be running as a Republican, and I will be running basically in my district. I would assume a Republican's going to win like almost every time. So basically the primary is the election. But even aside from that, like, I think that there needs to be more public, if not debates, like town hall type settings with people that are running for office, so that people could have more input as to what the platforms are of the people. I also think that I would want to do something like, I don't think politicians use social media as effectively as they could. Obama was kind of the first president that kind of tried, which I do kind of give him credit for. But, like, do you have any clue on an average week what your politicians are doing? Like, you probably don't. I don't understand why they don't use the opportunity more successfully to be like, hey, I'm going to do an hour YouTube video a week or whatever, some kind of platform where I'll take emails from people and respond to them and let everyone know what I was up to this week and try to reach out to people so they at least have some clue. And then maybe that's a bad thing, right? Because maybe you do that and people realize, man, this guy hasn't done crap for 2 years that I like. But that's fine. If that would be the case and you lose, so be it. At least the people who have more of an idea of what's going on and things of that nature. Just reading the chat here. You could take... Anyways, yeah, and then a couple other things that I would like to do is, like I said, reach out to the other side, the Democrats and things of that nature. I also advocate term limits. I'm trying to figure out what the term limit should be. I think it should probably be 3 terms in the House and 2 terms in the Senate. So that would be a term in the House is 2 years, so you could have a total of 6 years in the House, and a term in the Senate 6 years. 1 term is 6 years, so you could have up to 2 of those, which means you could have 12 in the Senate. That would be 18 years. And then, if you wanted to run for president, that could be a possible 8 on top of those. So, but forget that. We'll just say the 18 years. That seems more than enough, right? Keep in mind, the original idea was that being a politician was basically service to your country. It was similar to the military, though I wouldn't deign to say that it's as reputable or as dangerous or courageous or anything like that. But think about how it was when the Founding Fathers started. Almost all of them were landowners that owned farms and things of that nature. You didn't want to be bothered to have to travel to Philadelphia or later to D.C. or whatever to but you felt that it was your civic duty. So you were like, okay, I'll go serve for a couple years and try to do what's best for this country. And then finally you could, and you'd probably lose money during that time. Hopefully you had family that could help manage your land while you were gone. And then, you went, you served, you came back, and then it was like, whew, thank goodness that's done. I can get back, to working for my family, working to enrich myself and my community and things of that nature. Now it's a career, right? So when I say 18 years, like that seems like a huge amount of years. And you're right, it is a huge amount of years. Now consider that we have people that are career politicians that have been there 30, 40 years. Like how long's Pelosi been there? Think of what happens also. I think that you get in with good intentions, and it's actually, like, in all seriousness, it's a fear I have that I think that I'm a moral person. I think that I care about the people that would be my constituents and things of that nature. But you get in there, and I think the first thing you'll probably realize is you basically can't do squat by yourself, right? And you basically have to play the game to be able to get even small head roads. So you end up making some small sacrifice. You're like, okay, well, I gotta play ball somewhat in order to get any of my ideas. And so then the longer you're there, the more you've sacrificed some of your ideas to play ball. And after you're there, as long as someone like Pelosi and stuff, the only thing you're concerned with is just getting reelected and pushing your, the establishment platform. That's it. You basically sacrificed any good intentions you had. I say the same thing about Obama. There are some people that are like, oh, Obama was this terrible person. I think he was horrible. Like, maybe I certainly think he was incorrect, like, to put it nicely. But I think that he probably had decent intentions when he got in. And then he realized, like, okay, well, I gotta play ball with this and this. And the next thing you know, he's bailing out banks and overthrowing foreign governments and things of that nature. Basically everything he promised to be against. Hope and change, right? Yeah, what a joke. So, so that's a reason I think the term limit should be there. And yeah, I think there should also be some laws about what kind of lobbying. You shouldn't be allowed to get into lobbying and things of that nature after you've served for so many years, because there's kind of this revolving door where you end up working for a politician and then you're a lobbyist and then you're back to working for a politician. And so it's just more incentive to do even more with what these lobbying groups do. People hear this all the time, where they'll talk about, I'm drawing a blank right now. What's the name of the law, but that allows big money in politics? Man, I feel stupid. I'm drawing a blank, but I guess it is near midnight. But anyways, they talk about that law, and they're like, oh, well, that's why we have money in politics. That's why everything goes wrong. But even if you would repeal that law, you still have this revolving door. It's not like a lobbyist has to give you X amount of dollars, and that's the only way they could do things. They could offer you a job when you're out of office and things of that nature. So we need to be focused on things like that as well. So that's just a couple ideas. And also, I think the last thing I'll say, campaign finance. The last thing I'll say on this is, I think the Republic. See, I would look at it like this: as a in life, right? Who do you look out for? Like, what is the kind of hierarchy that you're looking out for? I mean, for me, it's like my family, myself, followed by, my immediate family itself, followed by my extended family, followed by my friends and my community. And then I guess it would go to state, country, not so much state, but you get what I'm saying. And then political party would be way down the line, right? So I'm kind of a Republican, so that would be at the bottom after all of that stuff, right? But as a politician, your criteria is a little different. That doesn't mean if I became a politician, that would change who I was individually. But as a politician, you're also it's a job, right? So, for example, my job that I have now, my number one concern at my job is still to do my job correctly and everything go well. Even though in real life, my family's still the most important thing. When I'm at work, I'm not going to call my wife and talk to her when I'm at work, because work comes first in that instance, things of that nature. So as a politician, I think the first thing you look at is you're looking at for your country first, right? Period. And then your political party is below that. So I would still want to help the Republican Party, but I'm concerned about the country first. That's why I would say, I'm willing to vote for someone who's not a Republican, for example, because I'm not just concerned about the party. I'm concerned about the country first. So anyways, looking at it through the lens of the party, though, I would make that clear to the Republicans, look, I am looking out for country first. But you still want the Republicans to do well if you're going to run as a Republican. And I think they do a very terrible job in reaching demographics that they're doing poor at. So, for example, minority communities, young people, uh, people that tend to live more in the cities, things of that nature, they don't do a very good job of reaching out to them. And the problem is, it's because the Democrats rely on their type of argumentation is kind of emotionally driven, and it's has this tinge of like morality to it, right? So you can see this in any issue. So take gun control, right? Like anytime there's a shooting, they'll say, you'll hear things like this. They'll say like, oh, well, if you're for the Second Amendment or gun rights, then clearly you don't care about children dying. Well, no, it has nothing to do with that. But then it doesn't matter what facts. If you're like, maybe you'll say this fact. Well, wait a minute. The last time we had kind of like a big assault rifle ban, what ended up happening were that the amount of mass shootings actually increased. So what you're suggesting is ineffectual. It's taking away rights, blah, blah, blah. But that logical, factual way of doing things, it's difficult to overcome the emotional morality argument, right? Because no matter what you say factually, it's the emotion of it that is going to outweigh that, right? And so you see that with things like the caravan or illegal immigration, right? Like if you're human and you see pictures of these caravans and things, like it does, it's emotional. You feel bad for these people, right? And by the way, that's all. It's kind of a trick of the mind. They know what they're doing. They know how to advertise, so they know how to take the pictures in just the right way. They know just who to focus on from these caravans. They don't focus on the fact that like 90% of them are working age males, right? They always take the most sympathetic angle that they could take on it. And so if you're human, you're like, oh my God, yeah, that's like, you do feel for those people, but you have to take a step back and be like, well, wait a minute, there's a lot, like, what is logically makes sense? What can we do? And things of that nature. And the logic seems to be secondary to the emotion of it. And so the Republicans need to do a better job of explaining that, and then also using the emotion to their side, right? So, one sec. I hate getting pigeonholed, for example, looking at race. That would be where I would start with it. You see that the left and the Democrats want to focus on race exclusively and look at racial groups as their kind of this collective idea. And I've talked about cultural Marxism. They want to set up different conflicts between these different groups, oppressors versus oppressed in every area. Race happens to be one of them. So right now, it's white people are the oppressors. These other groups would be the oppressed, right? And they try to set this up. So they would say then that you have to advocate the policies they advocate because it's for the oppressed groups. And if you're against that, then clearly you hate the oppressed groups. I disagree with that, right? So let's take inner city policies. We could say things like a lot of welfare that goes in those policies, affirmative action, things of that nature. They could say, well, if you don't support that, then clearly you don't care about the people that those programs are being geared towards. But I say the opposite. I say, no, I think those programs are actually harming the people that are geared towards. And here's why. They want to focus on Jim Crow laws and slavery and things of that, which, by the way, I don't belittle. They're absolute horrible stains on our country, and we should never forget them. Like, I agree with that. But, like, how can you explain by a lot of metrics these same communities that they're talking about are doing worse today than they were doing during the Civil Rights Movement? Like, slavery would have had more of an effect the closer you got to slavery. It's not like slavery really affected people as soon as it ended, and then less and less and less and less, and then 100 years later, now more all of a sudden. Like, no, that just doesn't make sense. So I think that we had what ended up happening was the war on poverty actually made the situation worse. I think I talked about this in my last video, but there was a report that came out in during the Civil Rights era. It was called the Moynihan Report, and it was done by a Democrat, which said that it was an epidemic that we really needed to focus on, that a lot of in the black community, it was like 25% of children were being born out of wedlock. That number is now up to like 75%, and it's really high. It's well over 50-60% for white people, etc. Now, I'm not focusing on, don't be mistaken, I'm not saying that like there's like this is based on like race or something, how someone was born. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying there's cultural influences going into this. And the reason I think it's gotten worse in all communities, particularly in the black communities, because we incentivized single motherhood through the war on poverty. So we had all these policies where basically people were going door to door saying like, oh, if there's not a man in the house, we'll give you money. The government will give you money. Oh, okay. And so this was incentivized. Now you have an entire community of people, one, that grow up in really terrible, difficult situations where there's a lot of crime and poverty and things of that nature. But secondly, they've been told for years, like, this country treated you like crap. It owes you something. You're a victim. That means something. You don't have to work hard. Everyone owes you, right? Like, that's told generation after generation. And then it's like, here's a bunch of free stuff. Here's a bunch of programs that we think will help you. You need to be treated differently because of your skin color, right? Like, this has been said for years and years. If I grew up in that community, I will guarantee you I wouldn't have been strong enough to get out. I would have fell into gangs. I would have thought that the world owed me something. I wouldn't have tried to worry about, like, bettering myself or getting a job. And so I don't judge any of those people, right? Like, I think most of them are doing far better than I would. I know my, conviction. I know how impressionable I am and things of that nature. So I don't begrudge any of that. In fact, I think, every year when I think of it during Martin Luther King Day, like, one of the things I like to think about is the black people in the black community that I think are heroes. And there are two that I think of regularly. One is the people that were slaves that said afterwards, I just want a chance to prove that I could work and be as good as people of other ethnicities. And they weren't saying, like, I want special treatment, things like that, even though they were certainly entitled to it, right? When they were actually directly affected by slavery. So the idea of reparations at that point should have happened, right? I do agree with that. But despite that, they said, we just want the chance to prove we could work as hard as you and be as hard as you. That's an inspiration to me. That is unbelievable strength of character. And I think of that every year in Martin Luther King. And I also think about the people that grew up in these inner city communities where education is so terrible, the system's terrible, where the idea of even being intellectual or reading and things of that nature is frowned upon culturally, and where you're constantly told you're a victim and things of that nature and that everyone owes you some. Yet there are people that come out of those communities that just through the strength of their character and their ability to work hard that are incredible successes. And those are people that are stronger and better Americans than I'll ever be. So, like, that's the type of people I think about. So anyways, it's all a long-winded way of saying, like, it's not that I dislike those communities, which is why I want to see those programs ended. It's that I too want those programs or those communities to thrive. I don't care about race. I don't care at all. I don't care what happened 30, 40 years ago or even well before then, right? The truth is, if you're looking at groups, right, any groups, whether it be a racial group, so you could say like black, white, Irish, wherever, you take any ethnicity, right, have been oppressors and oppressed in their past, right? Every individual, it's the same. We've all been good and bad people. Now, granted, there's varying scales of that, but the truth is, that's just the way it is. The truth is, all of us in life have had some kind of unfair situation or hardship apply to us, right? Every one of us, some more than others, right? Maybe you were born with a really terrible illness. Maybe a loved one died way too soon for you. Maybe you've just had a string of bad luck and things like that. Maybe you were prescribed pain pills when you were 14, and because of that, now you're addicted and things of that nature. It doesn't matter. You'll never get, you just have to act in life like, I need to take responsibility for myself. Lamenting the terrible situation you're in will never cause you to succeed or improve in life. So you just need to act as if, I get it, like, I could sit here and complain about it, but it won't do any good. We should govern the same way, right? We can't govern and say we need to correct these mistakes of the past, what we did to certain groups or things. We can't do that. We as a government should just be like, we no longer care about race or sex or sexual, if you're gay or not, or any of that. Like, we shouldn't make any laws based on any of that. It should be, you're all equally capable. That's how we're going to govern. There will not be affirmative action. There will not be special treatment for people based on these immutable characteristics. That's how I feel. And so what I'm talking about is how this would help the Republican Party, why I think that I would be a good candidate, or ideas like mine would be good for the party, because I think we need to be saying like that, look, we are reaching out to these communities, and the way we're reaching out is that we think that logically the plans that have been initiated have only made things worse. And then I was talking about how the logic argument always seems to be trumped by the left making these emotional arguments. Well, I think the counter to that emotional argument, which is, oh, well, then you're a racist if you want to change these programs. The counter to that is like, no, I think that the way you're acting is kind of more racial, right? Or in a racist manner, because it's like the bigotry of low expectations, right? Oh, these people aren't as capable as white people, or women aren't as capable as men, or gays aren't as capable as straights, or etc. However they want to use their cultural Marxism and identitarian politics to break us apart, right? They always say that one group needs help because they're not as good as the other group. I disagree. I think that if we encouraged policies that treated everyone legally as the exact same, and we stopped making kind of having like this cultural idea of saying that some people are victims and things like that, then people in all of those quote oppressed groups would actually show us that they're every bit as capable as people in the other groups. And I think that there are some people, and again, I always assume the best of intentions when I'm directly talking with someone that may disagree with me, but I definitely think there are people that have this kind of almost racist idea that are afraid, right? LBJ supposedly said, I'll have these N-words voting Democrat for the next 100 years. Like, I don't know if that's true or not, but he supposedly said that. Like, I think there was fear, like, oh my God, as these, educated, rich white people, we're afraid that maybe these black people are going to end up being just every bit as capable and smart and as hardworking as us. So instead, let's treat them like children so they never rise up and succeed like that. That's how I look at it. But nonetheless, you might disagree with me, right? You might say, like, no, these policies are good for the black community. Here's why. That's great. But I'm not a racist for thinking the way I am, right? Like, I care about those groups. I care about all groups. In fact, I care about the groups even more in the sense that I don't care that they're a group. I care about them as people, right? The group doesn't matter to me. So I don't think that we should have policies that are focused on particular groups like that. So yeah, that's my spiel on that.